But first, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, member of the Congressional Black Caucus, the House Judiciary Committee, whip for the Congressional Black Caucus. He represents the 8th Congressional District, which runs from Canarsie all the way up to Ozone Park in Queens. Welcome and thank you for joining us. This is the first time in probably more than half a century that we've got two New Yorkers running for president. Is New York going to be any better off with either of them as president?
Well, I think the country will be better off, and by extension, New York, should Hillary Clinton prevail. I think we're all in trouble if Donald Trump wins the presidency, which I don't expect to happen. But it is an interesting and unique moment in history to have two New Yorkers who have become the respective major party nominees for the candidacy of the presidency. We're in a unique period of time, as you know, Sam, in terms of this campaign and the issues that we confront, and I do expect that it's going to work out for New York.
Speaking about the issues, we had a story in the Times the other day that neither candidate has really been addressing the issues of the poor. Hillary Clinton, for instance, has a 37-point campaign manifesto, never mentioning affordable housing. The issues never came up in her acceptance speech. A Democrat not talking about this, you might expect it from a Republican. Why hasn't that issue, the issue of the poor, the issue of housing, the issue of things concerned to urban America come to the forefront?
Well, I think from time to time, over the duration of the campaign, you'll see different issues emerge. When Hillary Clinton spent time here in advance of the New York primary, she had the opportunity to come by several neighborhoods, including the downtown Brooklyn area, where she spent about an hour or so with myself and a few others at Junior's, and talked to people about the issues that the urban poor were confronting, and the affordable housing issue was front and center. I expect that over time, particularly during a few of the presidential debates, we will see these issues rise to the forefront. You know, the big challenge nationally is that we have a struggling and declining middle class, stagnant wages, affordable housing crisis, the loss of home ownership, obviously part of that, particularly in gentrifying cities such as New York and San Francisco and Boston and in other areas where the cost of living increasingly is skyrocketing out of control. But the issue of trying to put the American economy back on track for everyone, building upon the progress of Barack Obama, I expect will take center stage once we cross into the fall general election campaign in the main.
Is the assumption that we've got to fix the middle class and ultimately that will trickle down to the poor?
Well, I think we have to make sure we stabilize and grow the middle class, which means addressing the issues of all of those individuals across the country who aspire to be part of the middle class and right now are part of the lower income segments of society, working families and other individuals. The issues are the same. We have to increase the number of good paying jobs here in America that are available for people in Brooklyn and Queens, throughout the city of New York and beyond.
This is a tough election in the fact that people don't really like either candidate. And I don't want to make you responsible for this at all because you're supporting Hillary Clinton, but people think she's competent. Why don't they particularly like or trust her?
Well, every time she's actually had a government job, for instance, when she was the senator from the great state of New York for 8 years, her favorability rating was incredibly high, and her likability as Secretary of State. Her effectiveness was high in terms of the rating of the American people, as well as her likability was much higher than it may be at this given point in time. She's been in the center of the political debate for the better part of 35 or 40 years. And as a result, there's been a deliberate effort to undermine not just her husband, former President Bill Clinton, but her along the way. And that takes its toll. I do think that once she's successful, once she becomes president, once she makes history and demonstrates her effectiveness in dealing with the problems of the American people, we'll see that likability number skyrocket.
Your district includes East New York, which is among the highest crime districts in the city. You've talked a lot about crime, about anti-crime, about community policing. There was an op-ed piece in the Times the other day about community safety partnership in Los Angeles. How do we apply try something like that in New York. You've expressed some confidence in Commissioner O'Neill coming in. What do we do to make it easier in New York to demand changes both from the police department, a force that, as that piece said, cops who know the residents' names, speak their language, help improve the neighborhood, and demand changes from the community that, as that piece said, may be even harder to deliver, that grieving parents have to agree to join cops who may have jailed or killed their kids?
Well, we have made tremendous progress in New York since the last 2 years of the Dinkins administration, where crime has declined significantly and consistently to this point in time. I grew up in Crown Heights in the mid to late 1980s.
Different world.
Very different world in the midst of the crack cocaine epidemic. And the police and the community together have been responsible for making the city a much safer place right now. We have had some bumps in the road, and the stop and frisk aggressive program where hundreds of thousands of individuals were stopped, questioned, frisked, embarrassed, humiliated, often without any evidence of wrongdoing. More than 90% of the individuals did nothing wrong, according to the NYPD's own statistics. That took a toll on eroding trust between the police and the community. To some extent, the Broken Windows program has done the same thing. We now have an opportunity, given crime is at an all-time low, but we want to keep it low and drive it further down, to build upon the progress that's been made through the implementation of neighborhood policing. Chief O'Neill, soon to be Commissioner James O'Neill, has been the architect within the NYPD of the type of policing where officers get to know the people they are there to protect and serve, so that they don't look at every individual, particularly young African American and Latino men, as threats, that they can understand that there's a small number of individuals causing the criminal activity in places like Brownsville and East New York and the West End of Coney Island. The overwhelming majority of people are there just trying to reach the American dream. And with that recognition, I think we can continue to make tremendous progress, and I'm optimistic that soon-to-be Commissioner O'Neill can be an effective partner with us in the community.
Two very quick questions. Zero tolerance is one approach. Another worry that Pat Moynihan expressed is defining deviancy down. Where do you draw the line as to what is acceptable behavior and what isn't?
Well, I always take the assumption that people are fundamentally good and fundamentally want to do the right thing. But you have systems that have been put in place, intense poverty, lack of economic opportunity, an education system that has largely failed decade after decade after decade, whole communities, dooming them and their young children to life sentences of disadvantage and despair. I think if we can solve the structural impediments to people being able to robustly pursue the American dream, then we can deal with a lot of the issues that appear to be dysfunction in the family structure and beyond. Because at the end of the day, most sociologists look at the situation and realize a lot of it is economic. And if we can solve those economic problems, then we can improve the situation for everyone.
Very quick last question. Are there any circumstances under which you would run for mayor next year against Mayor de Blasio?
Not at the present moment. I'm committed to making sure that Secretary Clinton becomes President Clinton, that Senator Schumer becomes Majority Leader Schumer in the United States Senate, and that Democrats take back the House of Representatives.